Welcome to Stupid Builds, where I will show you some stupid builds. Some of these builds are our own creation, some are from a live stream chat, but all of them are stupid because of how strong they secretly are. Due to how well received our PvE stupid builds was, on top of Crucible generally being more starved than an Ethiopian Tiny Tim, we shall do another. Do you like the idea of converting bottom tier supers into DPS instructions so simple even the bluest of blueberries on Fireteam Finder could follow? Do you like cosplaying as a mixture between Iron Man and Elsa from Frozen? Do you think that the point of playing a video game isn't necessarily to be always optimal, but rather to have fun? Then take a moment, open your vault, and peer at the violently Christmas appropriately themed dagger scepter with me. The goal of this build is to use the Behemoth Titan's super to fuel a double stacking damage buff to Kamehameha away our problems like a fan-written episode of Dragon Ball Z. And because the Behemoth Titan's super is more disappointing than a birthday cake made of tofu, this alchemy of damage is uncontestably a net positive. And even still, when all the pieces of this puzzle click together, we can easily punch out 4.5 million damage without even optimizing our heavy weapon through a DPS cycle. Now, as any longtime subscriber can attest, I will giggle like a middle school boy roasting an ant under a magnifying glass if given the opportunity to use weird and unusual exotics in surprising ways. This time is no exception, as our exotic armor of choice is the Icefall Mantles. Besides providing an incredibly sturdy overshield, the Icefall Mantles provide a stasis weapon damage buff during the duration of your shield, and for a short time after every stasis weapon kill. This alone provides even the most Crayola-hungry Titan a one-button solution to Destiny's biggest problems: staying alive and making other things unalive. For thoroughness' sake, let's quickly cover the Aggers, as I'm sure many of you have likely forgotten about its utility. Aggers will cause an explosion of slow around defeated targets. This will make it one of the top dogs for special weapon crowd control, as its slow can compound into freeze, which can compound into shatter damage, and of course, utility generated from any stasis fragments. But as always, our goal isn't simply to get the job done. Our goal is to get the job done so well that the people that brought us on fear for our sanity and their own personal safety lest we become bored with alien targets. Appropriately, we would be remiss if we didn't point out the synergies of death and destruction given to us via this season's artifact mods, like Violent Frozen Death Cult, Torch, which grants bonus damage while radiant to stasis or strand debuff targets, for example, may not benefit us directly, but it does allow our team to gain a near-permanent bonus damage if they run this perk, because we will be spreading slows and freezes faster than the bubonic plague at an anime convention. Next, we have Pillar of Ice, which simply grants us an ice crystal on eliminations of stasis-encased combatants. And lastly, Hailstorm, which deals even more damage to these targets and causes some icy frag grenades on kills. But this build doesn't even truly require such abuses of Bungie's spaghetti code. They are but the whipped cream on the frozen sundae of taken ass-kicking. We wrap this treat of a build together with Diamond Lance for even more access to freezes, and Cryoclasm for the ability to bust through frozen targets like the Kool-Aid Man through a sliding glass door. The aspects are where this really shines. We ran this with fissures, bonds, chains, refraction, and hedrons. Each of these are either keeping us alive longer, getting our abilities up quicker, or are just generally better at dealing more damage. The biggest difficulty with this build is to make sure that you time both your Icefall Overshield and your Supercharge for the Aggers together. I often found myself having to play a little resource management game to make sure that everything was ready to go, but after a bit of practice it was so easy even a Titan could do it. For PvP, the build kept up in the frantic 6v6 environments, but the constant hunger for special ammo to really see this build at its peak severely stunted the potential of the build. Trace rifle balance in the sandbox right now sits at a very precarious position of being both simultaneously amazing and terrible. They are like Schrodinger's cat. If the cat were a gun, shot laser beams, and was generally nothing like a cat. 3 Cold Wars out of 4 nuclear winters. Did you know that every 60 seconds you aren't subscribed to this channel, a puppy gets a cold? Don't be a monster! Subscribe for the puppies! Last video, we mentioned that the Shards of Galanor feel a bit too involved for a bit too little of a reward compared to the Hunter's other options. Today's build attempts to solve that problem by making super generation and uptime as second nature as breathing. Bad Juju will passively generate you bonus super energy every time you secure a kill, reload your weapons, and grant bonus damage for a brief period of time after. The weapon has historically been perpetually in the long shadow of more percussively punctual pieces of post power, but the potential promise of prominent protruding a period of super is too pompous to pass up. Archibald, I swear on Zerf, you make tongue twisters a regular feature of these videos. Anyways, but we want to push the limit of super uptime, so let's take the ideology of the Shards of Galanor and wrap it up into a more generalized package, and run the Celestial Nighthawk. Celestial grants us bonus super energy on precision kills, so combined with our bad juju, we can cycle through one-shot career-ending golden gun musket shots like movie-set shotguns. Not to mention, ending someone with a Celestial Nighthawk Goldie has got to be one of the most disrespectful, rude, bad-mannered, yes it's personal, done in bad faith thing to do to anyone in PvP. And I love it so much. For our other parts of this build, we ran a Solar Slug shotgun. The original suggestion of this build ran the Hawk Moon, which also is very synergistic, albeit a little slower on the super. If you would rather trade your funny one-shot yes it's personal super uptime for a bit more lethality, it is a fantastic choice. One biblically accurate Celestial out of 3 Captain Laserhawks. If somehow you haven't touched PvP and have been living under a rock, Thorn is quite popular right now in the current meta. And while yes, I do break out in hives even thinking about running meta equipment, I love this Super Chatter's build idea. Necrotic Grips makes our Thorn kills explode into AoEs of poison, trickling damage to any enemies that have decided to disobey the rules of don't bunch up. This is an instant and of course hilarious synergy, but this is old news. But my dear viewer, if we ran this combo, which is already proven effective in the criminally insane's hands, with the newly buffed stabbing sticks, what would we have? If you answered criminal charges, you would be absolutely correct! For the innocent and uninitiated, Necrotic Grip's poison on melee hits works on glaives. This gives us that slight bump we need to either guarantee kills on a high-impact glaive shot into melee combo, or allows us to cheese some kills off of adaptive frame glaives with the same combo and a bit of patience. This we ran all together with the Strand Warlock, with the Weave Walk aspect. This was thematically beautiful and still held its ground in our sweatier lobbies, but it wasn't until later that we realized we could push this even further. So, as an exercise for the listeners at home, try this. Run this exact same setup. The glaive, the thorn, the necrotics, but instead of strand, try arc. With the arc buddy supplying even more collateral sauce over your shoulder, and the devastating arc electric slide, you could become a serious issue for the enemy team. The only issue that I could see with this is the lack of consistency from the aim of those arc buddies. But regardless, let me know in the comments if you try both of these, and let me know your favorite. 1 Belbiv DeVoe out of 1 Richard Silver. Our last build wants to take our enemy and psychologically condition them to fear the sounds of laser beams. To accomplish this, we ran the Devil's Ruin, the strangely slept-on heavy weapon in the primary ammo slot sidearm, and the new stasis trace rifle from the coil. The pairing of a sidearm, especially such a war criminal as the Devil's Ruin, and a trace rifle offers us a stupendous amount of engagement flexibility, with our only downside being the pulse and scout rifle range engagements. For your exotic, run the newly buffed Balador's Wrathweavers, and an empowering rift on, of course, a Stasis Warlock. The goal of this build, if it isn't somehow painfully apparent, is to have a constant uptime on bonus damage and overshields. While the Devil needs no buffing, granting even the smallest bonus damage to a weapon that fires as blindly quick as the Trace Rifle skyrockets on lethality. To complement the disrespect we plan on vending, we use the aspect Frost Pulse for a free freeze from our Stasis Rifts, and Ice Flare Bolts for a free freeze tag minigame off of shattering a target. Run this with the Cold Snap Grenade and the aspects Hedrons, Fissures, Refractions, and Rendings for maximum sauce. It's best you keep your engagements with this build close, and I've been told you will perform better if you make terrible ice-based puns like the Governator's version of Mr. Freeze. We at TDT wish you a happy holiday. Bless your faces, and deuces. For context, Belbiv DeVoe made the song Poison, and for the other context, Richard Silver is the guy who made the electric slide. You can remove this. I'm not going to use this in the actual, record.